Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Jana Bradshaw, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Jana Bradshaw, and today we have a really special guest. I'm so glad to have her on, Jana Wilson. She is the author of Wise Little One, which is a phenomenal book, and I can't wait to chat about, how you even got into writing and being vulnerable and brave enough to write about your story. And then she is the founder of Emotional Healing Systems, which I also can't wait to take a deep dive into and really get down to the nitty-gritty of healing. So welcome to the podcast.
Aw, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Jana, why don't you tell us a little bit about your book, Wise Little One? And because honestly, I was going with you with the emotions in your book. It was so captivating, and it's based on your story and how you got to this point of this ever going healing journey. It's like never ending. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you even got into writing and why you chose to write your book?
Okay, thank you, Jenna. Yeah, we never arrive, right? So the work just continues. The book had been in me for about 25 years. I'd wanted it, but like many things, timing is really important. It wasn't really until I met my husband and, of course, could wrap the book up with the big bow. And okay, all this work led me to this place of meeting my beloved in a very auspicious way. So it was all perfect. My mom passed away last year as well. So there was a lot of closure in my life on my childhood and family of origin and all the trauma. From a young age, I had a spiritual awakening. I start the book out with a prologue of this moment at 12 years old where I had already had a couple of mystical experiences prior to that, really catapulted in it through the traumatic experiences. I developed a really deep inner resource to my spiritual guidance. At that time, I was deeply entrenched in Christianity, and I lived in the South in the Bible Belt, and that's kind of par for the course. And but I had, watching the adults around me, I think when we're just young, we're innocent and we can tap in because we're still tethered to that other world, right? To the spirit world. And thankfully, the gift of my trauma gave me that deep connection to spirit. Now, as a spiritual teacher and emotional healing educator, I think most people suffer because they don't have a connection to spiritual guidance. But nonetheless, at 12, under pretty extreme situation, again, I get pulled out of my body. I feel a peace that I can only describe, that it was so deep and profound up until that point, right prior to that 12-year-old that I don't share in the book. I had a lot of suicide ideation. So I had been contemplating it, thinking about it, like spending a lot of time. How would I do it? My mom always had Valiums in the house, Excedrin, lots of different aspirins, things like that. And I guess, because I was in such a deep, probably depression, being conditioned by a mentally ill mother who was clinically depressed, of course, I just adopted the way she, managed her feelings and her emotions, which was to depress them, which is literally what depression is, not knowing how to manage emotion and move through it. But at 12, I get pulled out of my body. I'm in this peaceful place and I think, am I dead? And I thought to myself, I remember, oh, well, if I am, I like it. This feels good. I'll just stay here. And but then I'm told, my dad was beating my mother at that time. I was outside of our small little trailer, and I'm told those aren't your parents. And I look around, and it's like I'm in the cosmos, connected to star nebulas and star nurseries. And it was just the most beautiful experience, because I think when children are in that kind of major chaos, and it's like a war, right? And they think they're going to die. And so I was really scared, as I had been many times. As you've read the book, there was a lot more trauma before that event.
Yeah.
And so I was told, that's not your life, this is. And it woke my soul up so much that the forward trajectory from that point put me on my spiritual path at a young age. By the time I was 19, I was really a seeker. And then, of course, all of that led me to being who I am today and developing the emotional healing system. So,
oh, that's so amazing. I see this time and time again, and I can resonate with this as well, because I went through different type of trauma, more so with health, but still very traumatic experience, near-death experience at a young age. And I find that so many individuals who end up becoming spiritual healers, spiritual teachers, they've had such tremendous traumatic experiences in their life that rattled them to a point where it was like waking up their soul. And I know it's shitty. Let's be real. You're young. You don't know what's going on. You're trying to figure out answers, and you're like, why me? Why is this happening to me? And that experience wakes you up, and sometimes it doesn't, unfortunately, with others. But your story, anyone who is having any type of, abuse in the home and really traumatic experience in the home life, I highly recommend reading Jana's book, because it can be such a guiding point for you as to like which direction to go into, and giving you hope and inspiration. It really moved me I was like crying so many times reading this book. It was great. It was great. And I'm so glad that you had this courage to write the book and be so vulnerable and share your story, because I know that's not easy. It's not easy.
It isn't. And I was inspired by Jeanette Wall's memoir. I think it came out in 2007, A Glass Castle, or The Glass Castle. Did you read that book?
I did. It's a good book.
And so I was very inspired by that. Her childhood also was fraught with chaos, with two emotionally unintelligent parents, probably, on a spectrum somewhere. They were brilliant, but they were on a spectrum. And I kept thinking, about my life, and how at a young age too, I began to, through reading Many Lives, Many Masters by my teacher who I trained with, Dr. Brian Weiss. That book really opened my eyes, because it helped me empower myself. Because if I could look at my childhood not as a victim, because up until that point, I wanted to hide all of that. I didn't, healer, heal thyself. You mentioned that in the intro. Many healers have their own stories, but until you have healed something, because memory without emotional charge is wisdom. So I could only write that book to the degree, there were certain parts as I was writing it that I had to take out, because I felt it was exploiting my inner child. I wasn't ready to share that with the world. It was a little too much information. So I, would go back to the drawing board and take things out and really clarify that. But at a young age, I read Many Lives, Many Masters. I was about 20 years old, and the book totally transformed my life, because it was just a simple question. I thought, if I chose my parents, we don't know if reincarnation is true. We don't know what happens after we die. But this idea, this perspective was empowering me to the point where I was like, oh, what if my soul did choose a mentally ill mother, an alcoholic, chaotic father, and this experience is leading me to someplace in the future? What would that future look like? So I need to get all the lessons from my childhood, because I truly believe we're here in Earth School. We are here to grow, to learn. Life happens for us, not to us, right? To empower ourselves and not be a victim. And that was the game changer for me, Jenna. It was like, it changed everything, because then I saw myself as a pretty badass soul.
Yeah. I love that. Exactly right. And you're here to teach others. Like that's part of your soul's mission and purpose, which is so cool. So now let's kind of switch gears into your emotional healing systems. How did you kind of what's the foundation? How did you kind of create that? What does it look like? Let's kind of take a deep dive into that.
Okay, I'd love to share that with you. Well, so I began my own healing journey right in my 20s. I'm a young mother. I was a single mother for 7 years. I really wanted to not repeat the patterns, right? Get the lessons so I could raise her healthy. And so I began my path. I began, like I said, Dr. Brian Weiss, Deepak Chopra was my teacher early on, Marianne Williamson, The Course in Miracles. So I was devouring all of this information. I was a self-help junkie. And of course I was going to therapy, and I was doing all these, I was back in school, getting my degree in psychology. There was a lot of things that I was working on in a lot of different paths, but I was a single mom. I was still really struggling financially. I didn't have a lot of money to afford to do all of this. So, reading a book was a big thing. And eventually when I got married to my first husband, he and I, we ended up, he was also very much into spirituality, and we were very connected to personal development movement. So Tony Robbins, Les Brown, a lot of different new, thought leaders, more kind of business oriented.
Right.
And so I decided, this has been my path for a long time. I want to go back and get a training. And it was in Miami. I was at a big, I think it was a Hay House event, Louise Hay's company. And Debbie Ford was there and she spoke. And I remember I knew a little bit about shadow work. I was triggered a lot, because at this point I'm in my mid-30s. I'm still trying to, hold the beach ball down, not letting, wear a persona, wear a facade. I don't want anyone to know about my childhood, right? And shadow work was kind of, an idea that I had read some, but I couldn't really unpack it to understand it, how to apply it to my own life. So I hear her speak, it wakes me up huge. And then it sets me on a course. So then I get really serious about all the trainings, and I decide not to go the traditional route of formal education and becoming a clinician with a practice. I really wanted to do it more entrepreneurial and outside of the confines of, Western medicine.
Right.
And so I studied with Debbie. I became a staff member with her at the Ford Institute in San Diego. I ended up moving out there. My ex-husband was partners with her. I worked at the Chopra Center, trained with Deepak and Dr. Simon. So I started getting all of these trainings. And then there was a theme, right? I was really intent. I felt like kind of like a sleuth, like, okay, if you take someone who's pretty functioning, regardless of their childhood, but they've, they're managing their life, but they're lacking bliss and spontaneity and adventure and fun and joy. And, they're just kind of going through the motions, still looking outside of them for their happiness. If you took someone like that and you told them a system and you gave them, because that's what I was looking for, like somebody tell me what to do. Yeah. I know someone's got the answers. And then so I realized, okay, emotional intelligence has 4 skills. So I built emotional healing systems around the 4 skills of an emotional intelligence. So the first is self-awareness. And so how do we create self-awareness? Meditation. Everybody was saying it. Wayne Dyer was my teacher at one time before he passed away. Deepak, of course, was saying, everybody meditate, meditate, meditate. And I had been trying to meditate since I was a child. Even my mother had taught me to meditate when I was young. Interesting story about my mom, as you know, because you've read the book, her mental illness, she would have electroshock treatment, that convulsive therapy, and she would come with a rewired brain. Now we're talking all about neuroplasticity. Well, that's how they can rewire a brain. It won't sustain that state of higher consciousness, because if their environment doesn't change, of course, they default like an addict, right? Back to the
Right.
same old. And so mom would download into me all these deep esoteric mystical teachings from different lineages. So I was already, at a young age, definitely an old soul,
Yeah.
and, receiving all this information. And so I said, okay, emotional intelligence. I could create a system based on emotional intelligence. So meditation is foundation. Why? Because consciousness is everything. Einstein said it best: everything is energy. This is not philosophy. This is physics. So consciousness is energy, right? It's like if I asked you, Jana, what did you have for breakfast? Tell me about your childhood home. There is nowhere in the physical body, the brain, nowhere we could find those memories. And so the answer is they lie in consciousness, your awareness of them.
Right.
So the more, it's really the leading discovery of the 21st century, we can expand our consciousness through practices like meditation. And by doing so, we begin to harness where our attention is. And our attention, of course, is like fertilizer. So what are we placing it on? And so I began, I became a meditation teacher. I've been a meditation 15 years now, teacher with the Chopra Center. I teach primordial sound meditation. It's a mantra-based meditation. It's very powerful. So that's the foundation. And then I thought, okay, psycho-spirituality, psychology combined with spirituality is also the leading edge of therapy now. Now we're realizing you can't just meet it with the mind. You got to meet it also with spirit, right? Because we're a multidimensional being. So the system is meditation. Then the next emotional intelligence would be self-regulation. So how am I going to regulate myself? Well, I have to know myself in order to regulate it, right? I have to understand emotion, which is the inner child.
Yep.
And so we teach inner child work, how to reparent. Then we teach psychosynthesis, which is parts therapy. We do exposure therapy in the emotional healing system, really bringing out and exposing the worst thing you think about yourself. For me, that was white trash for so long, right? Because I was shackled with that label by society, by my family, by my town, and really learning to just be able to step into these labels without having them control me, right? I mastered them. I wasn't a victim of these labels anymore. And so I teach that in the emotional healing system. So it's a very deep dive. I'm a hypnotherapist, so we guide people into deep processes, into their childhood. Yes, I can take people into past life through regression, but rarely do I need to. We have enough to deal with in this lifetime. Forget going to another one. And then we end it with envisioning. Of course, forgiveness is in there, Ho'oponopono. And then envisioning, really helping people understand epigenetics. My husband Lance is a physician. He teaches kind of all the science and how, transformation in science and how it's really married today, and what we're doing, how it's up regulating our genes. We're not just, my housekeeper said to me the other day, oh, my family, it runs in my family to have diabetes. And my husband and I both said, oh no, honey, you don't have to take that diagnosis, right? That prognosis or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. I love how it's all about emotional intelligence, because now we're seeing that it's honestly the new IQ, which is so fascinating. And I mean, there's so much to unpack here. When you're working with someone, right? And maybe you're getting you're getting a variety of people, obviously, but what, I guess, patterns have you noticed within the people that you see? I'm genuinely curious to see what kinds of people are being attracted to you specifically. So what are you seeing with those people in terms of patterns and how it shows up maybe in the body or the mind?
So we just wrapped a semi-private for men. So there were 3 men. One was a psychiatrist from California. One was a young Black man from London, England. And one was a young white man from Colorado.
Mm.
Regardless, I've worked with people in Saudi Arabia and Europe, like it doesn't matter their socioeconomic level, it doesn't matter male or female, their gender, it doesn't matter their religion. I've worked with Muslim, Jewish. It definitely have to be a believer to do
Right.
this work because it is a spiritual component. It's always the same. So you asked me about the pattern, it's always the same.
Oh.
It is, the overarching theme is I look outside of myself. I've been conditioned, all of us have been conditioned to look outside of us for our value, our love, our recognition. We believe it exists out there. And that if we perform well enough or we look good enough, we'll get our needs met. And so the overarching theme is a disconnect with self, with the nature of true reality, which I am a divine being. I am not, even though I described the men who came here, the color of their skin, their nationality, their age, their profession, whatever, doesn't matter, any of that. We are souls, right? Those are just roles we play, things we take on in a lifetime. The overarching theme is I don't love myself. And when we do exposure therapy and I tell them, are you ready to, we'll go for a while with certain qualities, say it's irresponsible and, stupid, just like my dad or whatever. But when I finally get them to the place and I say, take a deep breath, are you really ready to go? Are you, do you want to go as deep as we can go? And they say yes. And I look at them and I say, you hate yourself. And they just burst into tears because it's the truth.
I have full body chills.
And it breaks my heart. I cry with them because I know there's a part of me that still self-loathes. Like you said, the work is never done. It's a constant, it's a constant meeting yourself and meeting that child and apologizing. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. I've abandoned you once again. I made other people more important. I depressed your feelings. I didn't listen to you. I put food in your mouth or drink in your mouth or substances in your mouth and told you to shut up and just get over it. I gave you away to a man or a woman, and now I'm reeling and rejection and abandonment, but really it's me rejecting and abandoning myself.
Yeah. I would have to say that I see the same thing, the overarching theme, and I deal with people when it comes to like the body and holism, and to be honest, it really does come down to the self-loathing, and you hate yourself, and you, just like you said, you cry with them. Same.
Yeah.
Being able to like hold the space for them where it's safe too is huge. Oh my gosh, I love this work so much. I think it is, so many people just need to know that they have other options when it comes to the healing journey. You don't just need to go on psychiatric drugs or take them at all. If that, doing this work will help you, and just, opening it up.
The psychiatrist that was just here, and I've worked with many clinicians, we have a Healing the Healer retreat, and usually they reach out for that. And, our private work is booked into next year, so it's really difficult. So we're trying to create more ways to meet people and support them without,
Right.
that was one reason why I wrote the book, is to get the word out, to create a bigger, because we do the emotional healing experience, a 5-day group experience. And we pick certain locations, like next year we'll probably be in Hawaii and Costa Rica. We do Florida, California, all over really where we want to go. And in these retreats, like, this guy that was just here, the psychiatrist, he, said, like, I want to start to support people to get off meds. They're coming to me to just write a prescription. I want to start to inquire with them, like, are you at all curious or interested in some other holistic ways to alleviate your symptoms, instead of just, because like he said, if I have put somebody on a SSRI and they're depressing their, emotions because it makes them numb. Now they can't even go to therapy because they can't even cry. They can't. And we know once we start crying, we can heal.
Right.
Yeah.
Cleansing the soul.
Yes, for
So
sure.
good. Okay. This is incredible. And I know we can go on and on. So leaving some words of wisdom for the listeners. What do you got?
I think the most important thing is to know the nature of true reality. It goes back 6,000 years in the Kleshas. It's what Buddhism was birthed out of. This is ancient teachings from India. And it just says essentially, these poisons that we adopt is one, we don't know the nature of true reality. And I'll circle back to what that means. Two, we identify with our ego, which is our false sense of self, right? Easing God out. Three, we're attached to things, right? People, our way. And the more we're attached and we don't get it, of course, we suffer. My teacher at the Chopra Center, Deepak's partner, Dr. David Simon, he was a neurologist. He passed away, but he would always say the most detached wins. So, we got to learn how to really just surrender and let go and detach, right? And then, of course, fourth would be aversions, the opposite attachment. Now I'm resisting things. Things are happening. I'm angry because it shouldn't be happening. Well, it is happening. And the only path out is through. So first you have to accept, right? So acceptance is paramount. And last is the fear of death, which is the ultimate attachment. And we saw that during the pandemic, people clinging and, fearful. And then, of course, all the fear porn that perpetuated all of that. But circling back, everything Patanjali, the creator of yoga, said lies in the first one, which is to know the nature of true reality, which means whatever created us lives and breathes for us, lives inside of us. It's not outside of us. Mm-hmm. So start owning your divinity versus your humanity. Imagine what you could create in life if you could claim that you are a divine being and you're here for a purpose, and your mission is to get really curious and find out what that purpose is so you can give your unique gifts and talents, right? So that, I think, is the most important thing. It's why people suffer. If they knew that they not just a child of God, you are God. And many people see that as blasphemous if they are, say of Christian, or, that but it's what Jesus taught, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how can I love myself or love my neighbor if I hate myself?
Yes, right? Absolutely.
So it's just all about, it comes back to us. Like, can I love the creator's creation? Can I love myself so deeply and accept who I am, light and dark? Because, this is the part of shadow work people don't get, that we're brought up in the world view that there's right and wrong and good and bad. No, there just is. There's isness to it all, right? It's like saying it shouldn't be daylight right now, or when it's dark, it shouldn't be dark. Well, how would you even know daylight if you never experienced darkness? So our darkness, now use it as a metaphor to our own life, our darkness is the thing that pushes us to the light. But we curse it and we tell ourselves we're doing something wrong, or woe is me, because it's dark right now, right? Because there's something bad happening. We call it bad. No, maybe it's the perfect thing to take you to your next level, right? It's the perfect thing to evolve your soul. So, I think, we're lacking EQ. If we taught emotional intelligence in schools, oh my gosh, imagine.
It would be such a game changer. Oh man, I say this all the time. And I coached a lot of youth previously to doing holistic health coaching in sports. And I would bring in like meditation tools, breathing techniques, because I would see that, number one, I would see the athletes that were like rock stars, right? Going D1, getting offers from like 15 plus different schools, but their EQ was non-existent. Like to a point where they were getting crazy anxiety and they would pass out, kind of.
Mm.
And like you said, if we could just teach the youth how to utilize these tools for their advantage in life, their life
Mhm.
skills. I mean, what a game changer. We would see a decrease in suicide and anxiety and depression and disease, illness, like so many things. And I love how you package it all together and the way that you explain it so fluidly. I mean, that's why I wanted to have you on. I just think it's amazing what you do. It's so potent and helpful. And anyone who, everyone read Jana's book, Wise
Aw,
Little One.
thank
It's so good.
you.
And thank you for those words of wisdom. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So where can people find you?
Well, I have a couple of websites. Of course, Jana Wilson. The book launches on July 12th, my grandson's birthday. I wanted to do it. It's his 7th birthday, which is the last year of conditioning, right? And
Right.
I talk about it in my book. I was definitely a cycle breaker, right? I corrected the karma and the problems of my parents and my family of origin with all that intergenerational trauma. By raising my daughter very emotionally healthy. Was I perfect? No, we're wabi-sabi. We're perfectly imperfect. But I did an amazing job because now I'm bearing fruit with this. My daughter's married to an amazing husband and, a man, and they have a beautiful son. So the book comes out on his birthday, Grayson.
I love
and
that.
in honor of him. And yeah, it'll be on every platform and every format. So there'll be
Yeah.
Audible, there'll be paper book, there'll be and janawilson.com leads to emotional healing retreats. And my husband and I just finished a professional course where we filmed the emotional healing retreat experience. And so that's going to launch at the end of this month of June before the book launches. So we have a lot of things in the works. We have a second book coming out that he's co-authored with me. That'll be a book, a really practical guidebook on the emotional healing system. So, and you noticed in the memoir, I put about 11 little boxes at the end of chapters where I gave people some tidbits or questions, to get kind of stir the pot.
Right.
But this next book will be a true self-help book. And we're excited about that too. But yeah, so emotional healing retreats or janawilson.com or Instagram. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on. It was such a pleasure.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, guys. If you like this episode, like, share, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.